Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel English Tutorial. I am Rajni Meena, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Government College, Rawatwata. Uh, we are discussing about Robert Browning and this is part 4th. Today we will discuss about Robert Browning's major works. There are two major works of Robert Browning. In Florence, probably from early in 1853, Browning worked on the poems that eventually comprised his two-volume Man and Woman, for which he is now well known. Although in 1855, when they were published, they made relatively little impact. In 1861, Elizabeth died in Florence. Among those whom he found consoling in that period was the novelist and poet Isa Blackden, with whom he and his wife had a voluminous correspondence. The following year, Browning returned to London, taking Pen. Pen was his son with him, who by then was 12-year-old. They made their home in 17 Barwick Crescent, Maida Vale. It was only when he became part of the London literary scene, albeit while paying frequent visits to Italy, though never again to Florence, that his reputation started to take off. In 1868, after 5 years' work, he completed and published the long blank verse poem The Ring and the Book, based on a convoluted murder case from 1690s Rome. The poem is composed of 12 books, essentially 10 lengthy dramatic monologues narrated by various characters in the story, showing their individual perspectives on events, bookended by an introduction and conclusion by Browning himself. Long even by Browning's standards, uh, The Ring and the Book was his most ambitious project and is arguably his greatest work. It has been called a tour de force of dramatic poetry. It has all over 20,000 lines. It was published in 4 parts from November 1868 to February 1869. The poem was a success both commercially and critically, and finally brought Browning the renown he had sought for nearly 40 years. Robert Browning Society was formed in 1881, and his work was recognized as belonging within the British literary canon. History of sound recording. At a dinner party on 7 April 1889 at the home of Browning's friend, the artist Rudolf Lehmann, an Edison slender photograph recording was made on a white wax cylinder by Edison's British representative George Gorod. In the recording, which still exists, Browning recites parts of how they brought the good news from Ghent to X, and can be heard apologizing when he forgot the words. When the recording was played in 1890 on the anniversary of his death at a gathering of his admirers, it was said to be the first time anyone's voice had been heard from beyond the grave. Legacy. His legacy was Browning's admirers have tended to temper their praise with reservation about the length and difficulty of his most ambitious poems, particularly Sordello. Sordello was the poem published on his death day, and to a lesser extent, The Ring and the Book. Nevertheless, they have included such eminent writers as Henry James, Oscar Wilde, George Bernard Shaw, G.K. Chesterton, Ezra Pound, George Louis Borges, and Vladimir Nabokov. Among living writers, Stephen King's The Dark Tower series and A.S. Watt's Possession refer directly to Browning's work. Today, Browning's critically most esteemed poems include the monologues Child Ronald to the Dark Tower Came, Fra Lippo, Andrea del Sarto, My Last Duchess. His most famous poems include Porphyria's Lover, How They Brought the Good News from Ghent to Aix, The Diptys Meeting at Night, the patriotic poem Home Thoughts from Abroad, and the children's poem The Pied Piper of Hamelin. His abortive dinner party recital of How They Brought the Good News was recorded on an Edison wax cylinder and is believed to be one of the oldest surviving recordings made in the United Kingdom of a notable person. It is a recording of Sir Arthur Sullivan's voice, was made about 6 months earlier. Browning is now popularly known for such poems as Porphyria's Lover, My Last Duchess, How They Brought the Good News from Ghent to Aix, The Pied Piper of Hamelin, and also for certain famous lines, Grow Old along with me, Ravi Van Ezra की है, A man's rich should exceed his grapes and less is more, and Dear Del Sarto से It was roses all the way. ये Patriots की लाइन्स है. Gods in his heaven all rights with the word. ये पिप्पा पासे से ली गई है. His critical reputation rests mainly on his dramatic monologues, in which the words not only convey setting and action but reveal the speaker's character. In a Browning monologue, unlike a soliloquy, the meaning is not what the speaker voluntarily reveals, but what he inadvertently gives away, usually while rationalizing past actions or special pleading his case to a silent auditor. These monologues have been influential, and today the best of them are often treated by teachers and lecturers as paradigm cases of monologue form. One such example used by teachers today is his satirization of the sadistic attitude in his soliloquy in a Spanish cloister. Ian Jack, in his introduction to the Oxford University Press edition of Browning's poem 1833 से 1864, comments that Thomas Hardy, Rudyard Kipling, Ezra Pound, and T.S. Eliot all learned from Browning's exploration of the possibilities of dramatic poetry and of colloquial idiom. In Oscar Wilde's dialogue, The Critic as Artist, Browning is given a famously ironical assessment. He is the most Shakespearean creature since Shakespeare. If Shakespeare could sing with Meredith's lips, Browning could stammer through 1,000 mouths. Yes, Browning was great. And what will he be remembered as a poet? Ah, not as a poet. He will be remembered as a writer of fiction, as the most supreme writer of fiction. It may be that we may have ever had his sense of dramatic situation was unrivaled, and if he could not answer his problem, he could at least put problems forth. And what more should an artist do? Considered from the point of view of a creator of character, he ranks next to him. Who made Hamlet? Had he been articulate, he might have sat beside him. The only man who can touch the hem of his garment is George Meredith. Meredith is a prose Browning, and so is Browning. He used poetry as a medium for writing in prose. Probably the most adulterary judgment of Browning by modern critic comes from Harold Bloom. Browning is the most considerable poet in English since the major romantics, surpassing his great contemporary rival Tennyson and the principal 20th century poets, indulging including even Yeats, Hardy, and Wallace Stevens. But Browning is a very difficult poet, notoriously badly served by criticism and ill served also by his own accounts of what he was doing as a poet. Yet, when you read your way into this world, precisely his largest gift to you is his involuntary unfolding of one of the largest, most enigmatic, and most multi-percent literary and human selves you can hope to encounter. His works have nevertheless had many dictators, and most of his voluminous output is not widely read. In a largely hostile essay, Anthony Vargas wrote, "We all want to like Browning, but we find it very hard." Gerard Manley Hopkins and George Santayana were also critical. The latter expressed his views in the essay The Poetry of Barbarism, which attacks Browning and Walt Whitman for what he regarded as their embrace of irrationally cultural references. Uh, in 1914, American modernist composer Charles Ives created the Robert Browning Overture, a dense and darkly dramatic piece with gloomy overtone reminiscent of the Second Benin's School. In 1930, the story of Browning and his wife was made into the play The Verets of Wimpole Street by Rudolph Bessier. It was a success and brought popular fame to the couple in the United States. The role of Elizabeth became a signature role for the actress Katharina Cornell. It was twice adapted into film. It was also the basis of the stage musical Robert and Elizabeth, with music by Ron Grainer and the book and the lyrics by Ronald Miller. In the Browning's version, Terence Rattigan in 1948 play or one of the several film adaptations, a pupil makes a parting present to his teacher of an inscribed copy of Browning's translation of Agamemnon. Stephen King's The Dark Tower was chiefly inspired by Browning's child Ronald to the Dark Tower came, whose full text was included in the final volume's appendix. Michael Divdin's 1986 crime novel A Rich Full Death features Robert Browning as one of the lead characters. Lines from the Paracelsus was recited by the character Foss Mudler at the beginning and the end of the 1996 The X-Files episode The Field Where I Died. Gabriel Kimin's 2010 novel His Last Touches, inspired by My Last Touches. A memorial plaque on the site of Browning's London home in Barwick, Crescent, Maidavale, was unveiled on 11 December 1993. A song named Galuppi Baldassare by Chris Delhorst, partial writing credit to Robert Browning and referring him by name through the song. Next last year's Robert Browning's के last year's and is death. In the remaining years of his life, Browning travelled extensively. After a series of long poems published in the early 1870s, of which Ballaston's Adventure and Red Cotton Night Cape Country were the best received, the volume Pacchiarotto and How He Worked in Distemper included an attack against Browning's critics, especially Alfred Austin, who was later became poet laureate. According to some reports, Browning became romantically involved with Louisa Caroline Stewart Mackenzie, Lady Ashburton, but he refused her personal proposal of marriage and did not remarry. In 1978, he revisited Italy for the first time in the 17 years since Elizabeth's death and returned there on several further occasions. In 1887, Browning produced the major works of his later years, paralleling with certain people of importance in their day. It finally presented the poet speaking in his own voice, engaging in a series of dialogues with long forgotten figures of literary, artistic, and philosophic history. The Victorian public was baffled by this, and Browning returned to the brief, concise lyric for his last volume, Orlando, published on the day of his death. Browning died at his son's home, Ca Raggionico in Venice on 12 December 1889. He was buried at Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey. His grave now lies immediately adjacent to that of Alfred Tennyson. During his life, Browning was awarded many distinctions. He was made LLD of Edinburgh, a life governor of London University, and had the offer of the Lord Rectorship of Glasgow, but he turned down anything that involved public speaking. Browning received an honorary DCL, Doctor of Civil Law, from Balliol College at Oxford University. Thank you.